Thomas, maybe you want to start some introductions while we wait for Pay?
Sure. Yes. My name is Thomas. I was born in Argentina. I've been living in Australia for the last 6 years. I left due to the economic situation, which is what led me to begin my studies in Bitcoin, which then led me into Rootstock, which is the EVM compatible sidechain that is merge mined by the Bitcoin miners, so that very much aligned with all my values. And I've been actively contributing to the space for the last 3-4 years. I became one of the first ambassadors. And yeah, I've been collaborating with all the different protocols. I've been a community manager for Money on Chain, content creator for Money on Chain, and also for Sovereign. So that is me in a nutshell. And I am very much interested to know about the router and their integration with Rootstock.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks. Thomas, would you like to lead the conversation and ask, our speakers to introduce themselves while we wait for Pay?
Sure, it will be my pleasure. Pirish, do you want to start?
Thomas,
Priyesh?
do you want me to start or
Hello.
do you want
Yes.
Priyeshu to start?
Yes. Sorry, I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I got confused. So it's pre-issue.
Priyesh. Okay.
Yeah. He's Priyeshu and I'm Ashu.
All right. Good.
Okay. So to give my introduction, I've been born and brought up in India and live there. I started my journey as a software engineer for a large unicorn startup. I used to work in the distributed systems team and code and manage a system which used to enable different people to write together in the same cab. That was the point of my research as well in my undergrad. So after that, I realized that I wanted to do something new and I entered into the blockchain domain and I started my journey as a crypto journalist. I ended up writing over 2000 pieces of articles over the period of 2 to 3 years. And it was a phenomenal journey as it allowed me to learn about most of the fields and writing about them like crystallize my thoughts even further. After that, I was working in the product domain of a company called Credo, which used to make multi-party computation back in 2019. And then I served as technical advisor and various other advisory roles for various startups. And then I finally met the team with which I ended up solving or trying to solve the interoperability problem. And I've been stuck in this rabbit hole for almost 3 years. The name of the rabbit hole where is called Router Protocol. And it's a phenomenal team of over 50 people. And we've been trying to solve the interoperability problem before people even recognize that it was a problem. Because when we started our journey in 2019 or early 20, at that point of time, 95% of the TVL used to be in the Ethereum ecosystem. And at that point of time, fragmentation was not really a concern and multiple chains was not really an issue. But fast forward to 2023, Ethereum now just has around 55% of the TVL. So, I mean, if you look at from that point of view, a lot has changed over that time. And the thesis which we built on turned out to be correct. And it's my pleasure to be with all of you here and share our thoughts and journey.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. Um, Ashutosh, do you want to tell us how you got involved in crypto and how you started working with Router?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, whatever part of the world you're in. I'm currently based in Dubai. And, one of the things my colleague Priyeshu here missed out was he was actually, if I'm not wrong, in one of his blog posts, the first to coin the term interoperability. Because back in 2019, 2020, it was all cross-chain, bridging, etc. Right? They actually had written one of the first blogs in interoperability, and that has kind of become the vision for router protocol, right? We want to be the best universal interoperability solution out there. And that is, in such a dynamic space, you often need that one guiding north light to kind of steer you forward. And that has predominantly kept us on track. But a bit of a rewind, I have actually, I'm 40 years old, close to 40. I have worked for like 17 years in Web2 across various sectors, right? From shipping, FMCG, academia, education, luxury retail, fashion, real estate. The way I moved to Web3 is I had seen so much of Web2 and I knew so much of their problems that Web3 just made sense, you know. And at some level, it kind of resonated and vibed with the community in Web3, kind of got tired of the wooden corner offices and centralization of power. So definitely thought that a bit of decentralization would do the world a lot of good. So I worked for some of the largest brands globally, actually, Johnson and Johnson, Hewlett Packard, from. But in 2020, during COVID times, one of my alumni, I actually am from the same university as Sandeep Nailwal. I'm sure you all know him. He is the co-founder of Polygon. But 5, 6 batches senior to him. So one of my fellow alumni, he was starting a trade finance protocol, right? Because we were all like at a similar age group at that point in time, 36, 37, mid 30s, gearing toward 40s. And we thought that there are real world problems, which could be solved using crypto. So we started something called Polytrade, and that was kind of my first full-time gig in the crypto space. Though I have been in the space as a retail investor since 2016, late 2017, early. I mean, purely because Matic was a token which was born out of our university. So I was in, amongst the first people in the mailing list. Which Sandeep had actually said that, oh, I'm planning to start a blockchain. It is going to be called Matic, and I'm looking for support from alumni. So was one of the first ones to receive those messages. That is how I kind of got interested in the space. After that, I realized that, the space is not actually ready for the apps because there was a lot of work pending on the infrastructure side, right? So got involved with Reef, and Reef is, it's a substrate based solo chain. So kind of keep of growth leading the ecosystem, and happened to meet the router co-founders at one of the conferences in Dubai, and we really vibed well, and the vision was amazing. And of course, that point in time, the diligence of the team, the sincerity of the team was there to be seen. But what clicked was the fast forward vision that they have. While the world was kind of working on, various blockchain ecosystems. So here is one protocol which is already talking about breaking down the silos of, blockchain ecosystems, and which is kind of defragmentation of liquidity, defragmentation of user base. And I really resonated with that. I really vibed with that. And that is how my journey with Router started. And it has been a spectacular growth journey, actually, because when I came in, close to around 17,000 in the community, purely organically with almost $0 in marketing spend. We grew the community 3x. And, even today we might just have about 55, 60,000 followers on Twitter, but we have one of the highest engagement rates, right? And that is testimony to the fact that we have the most captive organic audience which understands interoperability, right? Layer 0 and XLR put together would not have a community of this size, organic community of this size. Now, I'm not talking about transaction volumes or anything else here. Purely talking about real people, dogs, people who are interested in interoperability. Which protocol are they following? Which protocol are they part of? It is Router, and we are really proud of that achievement. So I'll kind of pause with that note, and probably I think we have Pei here who has joined already. So let's move the space forward.
Yes, great. Let's bring Pei as a co-host as well. And well, I heard both of you talk about the interoperability problem, which I know is one of the big things for Router. But I think it would be useful for the spaces if we give a brief description of what it is and how is Router aiming to tackle it.
So I'll explain interoperability. It's a very simple picture. So if you remember, probably you will not, but if you have read history, so when the internet started in 1970, there used to be different internets. There used to be something called ARPANET, and then there was different companies making their own versions of internet, and then there was some Berkeley internet and things like that. So everyone was focusing on their own internet, and they would go and invite others to join their internet and then think of ways to connect that internet. Something very similar happened 50 years down the line in the blockchain world. Everyone started building their own blockchain, and the VCs were predominantly very bullish on funding the layer one companies. So even if someone would not even want to launch a blockchain, they would launch a blockchain because that would make a financial sense to do it. And that led to a movement where we saw a lot of innovation and a lot of different blockchains come up. There were like those blockchains did not really have a way to connect to other blockchains or to send a message or to read a message or even transfer assets. So basically, each blockchain evolved to become like a isolated island. Then that island really did not have any connectivity or any full connectivity to other blockchains. So interoperability is the technology which aims at connecting these silos. These silos are of liquidity, these silos are of user experience, these silos are of transaction fees, these silos are of communities. So each blockchain in itself is like a city. And it's very important, just like shit, we have like good connectivity between cities, like people change governments for that. People have airport, good road, metros, and whatnot. So that kind of connective tissue is also needed in the blockchain world, which connects those different blockchains. And that is where router fits in. It's a chain agnostic layer, which really does not care about which chain you are on. The purpose of it is to build the connectivity tissue for all the blockchain so that any chain can interact, message, or transact with any chain. As simple as that. So that is what router is.
Perfect. I think that was very well understood, very well put. And I would like to ask that as a follow up question, like what what is router's approach to solving this interoperability problem? You can describe it briefly.
So our initial approach when we started off, we were a proof of authority bridge, right? And even at that point in time, we had a modular architecture. But our current approach that we are gravitating towards, it's a blockchain-based interoperability solution. Right? Now, one of the large protocols, Layer Zero, in the interoperability space, their CEO in 2021, he had famously said that, the best way to solve for bridging is by using a blockchain itself as a bridge, because most of the bridges were prone to security hacks, etc. He said it's also not feasible, and it's probably not the most efficient way of doing things. And at Router, we chose to do exactly that. So we now have a blockchain which acts as a bridge, and we have a middleware, and we have like gateway contracts from source to the middleware, and we have gateway contracts from middleware to the destination. So we have orchestrators and relayers listening to events which are relevant. They kind of send those events in. The middleware executes the bridging logic, and then you have validators who are validating the transaction, and then the transaction goes to the destination side. So that is our at a very high level, simplistic approach towards bridging. Now, of course, we have used the Cosmos SDK to build the blockchain, and but we are truly universal in our approach. So we really don't have any reliance on the Cosmos ecosystem per se. So we are able to support Rootstock RBTC precisely for that reason, right? So that has been our approach to interoperability. Now, of course, we can delve many layers deep, and we can get into the intricacies. But at the at the high level, this is how we approach interoperability.
Yeah. Okay. So if I understand correctly, we have a lot of these blockchains that are, for example, buildings that have a lot of things, businesses being built on them, and router is kind of like the highways that is connecting all these different buildings, kind of.
Yes, that is one way of looking at it, or and just looking at funds or asset transfer, right? But what the universal interoperability also affords you is the ability to transfer general message. And what a protocol like router does is allows you to send custom bridging messages as well. Right? Now, what does it mean? So if you go to a United Nations conference, the Prime Minister of Spain might speak in Spanish. The Prime Minister of Thailand would probably speak in Thai. Now, how do they understand each other? Obviously, it's a real time thing, so you cannot have translators, manually translating stuff. So they give you headsets in all of these United Nations conferences. So where even if a person is speaking in Spanish, the person who is listening can choose to listen to it in English or Thai or Hindi or whatever language they prefer. So that, in a nutshell, is a very close, example of what router stands for.
Okay. Yeah. That makes perfect sense, and it's a good way of thinking about it. I would like to ask you, what do you think are the biggest challenges that router is facing today in order to succeed with this connecting blockchains mission?
So some of the key challenges that we face is that the speed of thing moving in the industry is very fast. I mean, by the time we end up integrating one blockchain, 10 others line up. And then there are like no universal standards who are like followed in the interoperability. For example, like, I mean, there are 10 or maybe more than 10 now. There are 50 different bridges. Each one of them have their own standard, and each one has their own way of doing things. And then there are like every consensus mechanism is different. Some interact on the native Bitcoin blockchain. So we have to figure out some hacks to integrate it. So with so much diversity in information and technical structures, it's like a race every day to win and to figure out what is next and where the users are going to be and build and provide the best solution for them. And that is like a key challenge, which not only us, but I think every interoperability solution faces. But I think over the period of time, there will be some aggregation of standards, and then it would make more sense in a world where the interoperability standards are clear and the consensus communication standards are clear. Then I think we'll delve into a world where interoperability becomes the breeze. But it's going to be a long and hard.
All right. Yeah, we have Pei. Pei has joined us. So Pei, I think it would be good if you do a short introduction for the spaces.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry for being late. I'm Pei, and I'm Chief Growth Officer at IOV Labs. And I previously worked in the Ethereum ecosystem through companies like Consensus, and my background is in traditional finance on the trading side, fixed income. Yeah, very, very, I think, point of me being here is really to welcome the router protocol team into our ecosystem. I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about your product, your development currently, and it's certainly a very, very topical subject, right? Interconnectivity, the bridges, and how we create more, break down the walls between blockchains and different ecosystems. So yeah, keen to here's a little bit more outlet for the Thomas to drive most of the questions, but I'll reserve a few to ask in the middle.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Pei, for that intro. So I was just gonna ask a follow-up question to the interoperability problem that you were describing about not having universal bridges and consensus mechanisms, which seems like it would be a lot of work for you guys to figure everything out. And I am wondering what's the plan there for you? What's the roadmap? What does that look like? The solution.
So I would say that, it's just a hard problem in terms of the effort required, but it's not a technically hard problem. It's something which requires large number of technical hours to put into, but it's not something which would require a lot of technical breakthrough to make it viable. And that being said, scaling up team with relevant experience is of course helping us add more chains quickly. When we've been able to add 2 to 3 chains per month, and that is a good speed as per the industry standard so far. And I think that one of the key things which we would like to achieve is that figure out a way so that the blockchain can have interoperability out of the box without any manual intervention. And that is something for unique problem we're trying to solve. And there is no clear solution yet. And I'm sure that there are others in the industry who are also trying to solve that problem because it's so appealing. But I'm sure we'll get there soon.
Yeah, well, that would certainly make things a lot easier if we had some universal standards. So, what would you say are the goals for router protocol? At least the short-term ones, the most imminent ones.
One of the goals I would let Professor Sahu.
The imminent one is obviously to get into the gamified testnet phase. Okay. So as you know, we are in testnet for our new solution, which we spoke about. Now, what we figured out is interoperability as a space is a bit complex, right? So even going by the kind of questions that we get on Twitter Spaces, we feel that even though it is one of the most important topic to address, the consumerization of interoperability has not yet happened, right? Now, for us, it would have been very easy to run the testnet for 1-2 months, do some testing and get into mainnet. But no, we did not want to do that. We really wanted a consumerization of interoperability to happen. And when I say consumerization, it really means to understand in detail who the end users of interoperability are. And then we realized that it is going to be the network actors, it is going to be the validators, it is going to be degens, it is going to be builders, developers, it is going to be content creators. And then we said that how can we gamify this experience rather than having a task-based or a typical run-of-the-mill Web3 way of doing things? Can we do something new? And we have actually figured out, and this is the first ever gamified in the interoperability space that you will see. And it is actually designed on the lines of an 8-pixel game, because when we were thinking of this idea, the movie Mario Bros was really doing well in the cinemas. And then we thought that, okay, why not use that as an inspiration? So now people can actually choose their characters. They can choose what role they want to perform in the network. Do they want to participate as a developer? Do they want to participate as a validator? Do they want to participate as a degen, as a content creator? There is something for everyone to do. And that is real consumerization of interoperability. Now we keep saying that, okay, we don't just do funds and asset transfer, even though it is one of the largest use cases of interoperability today. We also do general message transfer. Now, what does it mean for a common man? But okay, what kind of general message are you talking about? Right. And then we develop ping pong, right? Where I can literally send hi Priyashu from Polygon, and Priyashu can receive it in on Arbitrum, and I can receive an acknowledgement that Priyashu has received this text message, and then I can get mint an NFT. Now this is like multiple instruction execution in a single command. Now that is real interoperability. That is consumerization of interoperability. So the imminent goals, obviously, for us are to continue to build these public goods. Of course, there is exchange as well, which allows users to fork testnet tokens. So, for example, I may have Mumbai Matic or Goerli ETH, but I want the testnet tokens of one of the newly launched chains or one of the chains for which I do not have testnet tokens. It is possible to just go to the exchange and log in there, and whatever testnet tokens you have, you can swap it for any other testnet tokens that is available. So that we will continue to do this. We will continue to figure out such cute, easy to understand use cases. And we will also continue to support. Look, deciding to support Bitcoin interoperability was also a key milestone for us. We figured out that nobody is doing it, and Rootstock had this key need. So we said that, okay, even if it is kind of going to require some additional developer hours, which we need to ship out from elsewhere, let us do this because we want to truly be that universal interoperability protocol and consumerize it. Now, if you see, the greatest consumerization of Web3 in terms of asset is ownership of Bitcoin, right? That is, and if we are able to enable that, or if we are able to support a project which has a vision to, enable that, we should definitely do it because that is true to our vision. That is the directional North Star that we are following. Of course, after the gamified testnet, we will proceed into mainnet. And then, we have so many partnerships lined up. So we will be migrating them from V1 to V2 of our solution. There is a pipeline of dApps from the DeFi space, which are looking for integration. So we will start integrating the, the chain and we will start supporting those dApps and we will see a lot more activity. And of course, while all of this is happening on a regular basis, we will continuously try to preempt that what could happen in 2024 in interoperability, what might Web3 need in 2024, what might it need in 2025, and kind of have a sharply focused team already researching that or developing that. So that is what life looks like, at least for the next few quarters.
That's super fascinating. I can't help but wondering, in terms of value proposition, right? You mentioned gamification. There's the consumerization of interoperability, which is a complete new concept to me, and I think it's a very exciting one. Can you speak to that? Like, is a how do you is that a key value proposition, right? Like the idea of you can consumerize or productize it and somehow turn it into a viable business model and engage all the end users and the key participants, or is it? Or you think about something different?
Yeah, so currently consumerization is in terms of comprehension, right? And it is our beliefs that more people that understand interoperability and its impact, that is how truly dApps which are using interoperability will thrive. Right? If people do not understand the impact of interoperability, they are never going to use a cross-chain dApp. Right? So now a dApp might have cross-chain functionality enabled, but if there are no users for it, then what good is it, right? So one of the things which router chain, once we go mainnet with V2 of our solution, is going to enable is for natively interoperable dApps to be built. So what does it mean? Now, if you are building a DeFi protocol or a lending protocol, there is a possibility that you could deploy it on router chain and it will become natively interoperable. Now, if you see the world currently, they first choose, okay, let me first deploy on Ethereum, let me first deploy on Polygon, then let me run the dApp for 6 to 18 months, make some money, and then once I go into an expansion mode or growth mode, I start adding more chains. And that is when they start thinking about that, okay, adding a chain one by one is kind of tedious, it is taking a long time. And that is when they start thinking about cross-chain or going multi-chain, and then they start engaging with interoperability protocol. Now we are going to fast forward that process. and say that, okay, if you are a dApp with a novel idea, we can make you an IDApp, right? An IDApp is a term that we have coined specifically for this gamified testnet that you could actually deploy, because remember, we are using a blockchain itself as an interoperability solution. So any dApp which is deployed on this chain will be an IDApp. IDApp basically standing for interoperable dApp, which means it will be natively interoperable without the need for going for additional bridging solutions, etc. So this consumerization of comprehension is also going to lead to adoption of dApps which are using interoperability as their core value proposition. And that is how I think the future should be. It should not be blockchain ecosystem dependent, but it should truly be ecosystem agnostic. And this is the first step towards achieving that.
And on that journey, which makes a ton of sense, the depths focus probably, will, for me, that's a question of, do you have a focus around specific bias or what depths you think need the most interoperability between specific, ecosystems? Are there specific use cases that you had it in your original vision as well?
I think in the immediate term, it will be the DeFi protocols, lending, borrowing, cross-chain lending, borrowing protocols, right? But I will let Priyeshu to also speak about some novel use cases, because we figured out that there are 29, 30 different use cases which the industry has not yet seen, which can be enabled by router chain once we are on mainnet. So Priyeshu, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So there are a lot of use cases, and I think interoperability is a technology like AI. So like AI independently can't do much. It's best leveraged when you embed it into existing system and improve them. So, for example, a lot of young startups came up last year which are selling this article writing AIs, and independently they couldn't do much. But the companies which ended up leveraging them like Notion, Microsoft, Google, India Flows, they emerged out to be the winners. So similarly in interoperability, every industry and every application will have some use of it. Why? Because if you think from a dApp perspective, a dApp needs mainly two things. It needs transactions, volume, and it needs users. And in a world of fragmentation, for any dApp to get users and liquidity from other chains, they need some interoperability solution. So when you talk about DeFi, for example, it can use something as simple as a Uniswap. You have to do a swap on one chain, and then probably if you want to buy some coin which is on BNB, then maybe bridge your funds to BNB and then buy that coin again on Uniswap on BNB, and then maybe take it to Uniswap on Arbitrum and things like that. So that is where we are seeing a world of multi-chain deployments, that a dApp is only able to serve the number of chains it has deployed to. That is a standard multi-chain deployment. Well, most of the dApps today do not even have resources or enough users for a world like this. They end up picking one chain of their choice and they just operate there. For example, some of the large decentralized perpetual apps, they just operate on one or two chains. Now, what happens is this effectively shields out the users and the community of other chains from using these kind of applications. You could even think about something as simple as a identity protocol. For example, let's say that you have your ID on one chain, like say ENS. Then what if you could use that ENS on other chains as well? What if you could use that ENS on Bitcoin? What if you could use that ENS on Solana? What if you could use the same ENS everywhere? But that typically does not happen because these blockchains are not really connected to each other. Same thing we observed in gaming also. So there was this game which got very popular, and then it kind of like it was called Step In, and they used to reward people for doing walking. I'm sure they probably still do, albeit the rewards might be a lot lower than whatever they were a few months ago. So there, I mean, if you would have noticed, they had two different like networks, Solana and BSC. The shoes you buy on Solana were not applicable on BSC. The shoes what you would buy on BSC were not applicable on Solana. So that created a very different and fragmented experience for some gamer. Now think from a gamer perspective, like when you are a gamer, if you're a normal user who does not really understand Web3, you join some fun game and just want to play. You don't really want to care about all the abstraction that goes on out there. You don't really want to care about which chain you are on, which gas fees you want. All that needs to be abstracted to onboard the next big network. So interoperability is just a way to achieve that kind of abstraction which our industry needs to serve a lot of users. So that is how I think that we can approach the problem. And even, I mean, if you see today, the Bitcoin interoperability is also broken with Ethereum. I mean, there's no real good way for someone, let's say, who has some assets on Arbitrum to maybe do some inscriptions or buy some Satoshis on Lightning Network or, or maybe send a Lightning instruction from EVM chain. So all those use cases, I mean, they're being developed and there are some solutions, but none of them have achieved a market fit or actual usage yet. But I think like with the continuous effort of the entire industry, they'll get there.
Would that be some one of the focus areas, like to bridge the Bitcoin um, ecosystem and the other existing DeFi ecosystem? I mean, I think that's the most challenging, right? Like if you think about connecting across different layer twos on Ethereum, it's a one level of task. But if you're talking about connecting Rootstock or Lightning to Arbitrum, that's a whole different level of challenge from both like from a technical perspective and from liquidity perspective.
Yeah, so that is correct. And those are the kind of challenges we want to solve for. I mean, and I think just like Rootstock will also be instrumental in solving those kind of problems. And think like with the router integration of Rootstock, that brings us one step closer to the world of Bitcoin. So we're really excited for this.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll be great. I'm gonna hand over back to Art of Thomas, and I've been kind of asking way too many questions here.
Thank you. But those were really great questions, and I've been taking notes while you guys were speaking. So thank you for that. So you mentioned that there's a lot of apps on the pipeline that you're building and you're helping other people build using router to be interoperable. So I would wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit more of the protocols that are already there, because you mentioned ping pong, but I know there's also one called Voyager and TextChange. So I don't know if you can give us a little bit of overview on how those work and what you can do with them.
Yep. So Voyager is a decentralized cross-chain swap platform. Basically, what it allows you to do is swap asset A on one chain to asset B on another chain. So it's one of the first cross-chain swap applications which went live. It's the first mainnet of that went live around May 2021, and that was like really long ago. And that was like well received, and it's been almost more than 2 years for the development at a production stage. And the thing about Voyager is that you can just give assets on one chain. You don't have to really worry about how the transaction will go. You don't have to worry about claiming any assets. You don't have to worry about if you have gas fees on the destination chain. All of that complexity is abstracted from the user, and they get a one-click cross-chain swap in the form of Voyager. Then exchange is something we built because a lot of developers used to have pain while they would try to get testnet tokens. Because I mean, there are a lot of people who hold these testnet tokens. And then we realized that we need to create a free market for these testnet tokens for them to achieve some kind of price point or some kind of swapping mechanism. So that, I mean, if a developer is struck, say 1 hour to just get 5 Gorley ETH, then it's a waste of their time. I mean, those 5 Gorley ETH might have a market value of less than $1, but it can very well end up wasting hours of developers. So since we are a developer first platform, we built this as a public good so that developers can easily come in and acquire these kind of testnet tokens by paying a very nominal price or by exchanging some testnet token which they already have. So that is something which we did. Yeah, ping pong is just a demonstration of our cross-chain capabilities. And with that, a developer can like do their first cross-chain transaction, get a feel of how fast it is and how it works. And we also support something called the acknowledgement flow. So for example, when you send a message from one chain to another, you can also request an acknowledgement that would come to you automatically once that message is received by the destination chain. So these are just a few apps which we have built out and they're out. But I mean, we are building, I mean, a lot of applications and we are also incubating a lot of applications. And those, I mean, I'm not at the liberty to talk about them because there are some very interesting use cases. And the best way would be for those projects to formally announce their launches. So I can't steal their thunder, but I can tell you that some very good applications are getting built on top of our.
All right, thank you. Well, that makes me even more excited to see what's going to come out of this ecosystem. And I have to say that as someone who has come from Argentina and is doing a lot of effort trying to onboard people from Argentina into the world of crypto, because it offers a lot of solutions that they need. All this, what you talk about abstracting the complexity to make it easier, I think that is incredibly valuable because that's one of the biggest hurdles for people to get into the world of crypto in the first place. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how the router protocol itself, how it's the governance, it's structured, and how it works, the chain itself. If we can get some information on that, that would be great.
So router protocol is effectively built on a tendermint based consensus. It's a Cosmos that the validators of the router chain are effectively the validators of the bridge as well. So as Ashutosh mentioned earlier in the call that we figured out that we wanted to build the bridge in the chain, in the blockchain itself. So that's what we did. And now the bridge is secured by a POS framework that has been time invested again and again in the past 5 or 6 years. And that framework is powering over 100 blockchains as of now. So the router's governance is also very straightforward. It's purely based on the kingdom and consensus that for every major decision, there will be a vote and the number of tokens will decide like what kind of voting power we have. And it's a very decentralized thing. And